Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Monday, May 18th. Mr. Coates here, going over your learning targets for today. We're going to start with Math Board, change your preset back to facts levels, and then we'll go into Splash Math Fractions today, adding mixed numbers. That's going to be level 10 and level 11, both today. Mystery Science, I have a short video. What would happen if you didn't have a skull? So this will continue our studies on the human machine. It's very important in Math Board that you still keep up with your facts levels, okay? This is something that really and truly I've seen students will lose progress if they don't keep practicing, okay? So whatever facts levels you're on, keep on going. And I like those who are commenting to me in the comment section on what fact levels do I go to next, and I will be happy to tell you. Our focus today will be adding mixed numbers. Those are fractions. So up to this point, you've learned fractions were actually pretty easy when you add them with a common denominator, right? So here we have a common denominator. Our denominator is an 8. So we're going to keep 8s. And we know that at this point, we just add the numerators. 3 plus 2 equals 5. So 3 eighths plus 2 eighths equals 5 eighths. So let me take that one step further. What if we had whole numbers in front of those? What if we had 1 and 3 eighths, that means 1 whole pi and 3 eighths of another, plus another 1 and 2 eighths. Okay, watch this. So we first, in this situation, we're going to add the whole numbers. This 1 plus this 1 would combine together as we add to make a total of 2. We look at the denominator, which are eighths, and we keep, because they are common, we keep that eighth as a denominator. And the same as we've done up to this point, numerators, we just add 3 plus 2, which equals 5 eighths. So 1 and 3 eighths, 1 and 2 eighths equals 2 and 5 eighths. Let's do one more as another example. Okay, so we're going to add mixed numbers. Here's another mixed number situation. We've got 2 and 2 fifths. And I want to add that to 1 whole and 1 fifth. Okay. So we're going to start first by adding the whole numbers. Our whole numbers here are the 2 and the 1. Okay, so we've got 2 whole plus 1 whole, and that's going to equal a total of 3 whole. We're going to notice that our denominators are fifths, so we keep the fifth as a denominator. And then we look at our numerators. 2 plus 1 equals 3. So 2 and 2 fifths is a mixed number. We're going to add that to 1 and 1 fifth, which is another mixed number, and together that produces 3 wholes and 3 fifths. In today's Splash Math lesson, you're going to practice this on level 10, add mixed numbers using models, okay? So as a reminder, up to this point, you should be done with all of the fraction levels in Splash Math 1 through 9. So we're going to start today on 10. One of the examples you'll see today is this one. Use colors from the palette to model the addition. So we're going to be adding 7 fourths, and I'm going to use that model as orange to highlight 7 of these fourths. And then I'll change it to green to model 1 fourth. So selecting the orange first, there are 7 fourths. Select the green to represent 1 fourth, and you'll notice that's a total of 2 whole. In this example, we're adding 1 and 1/3 to another 1/3. So if you could picture this fraction here, this mixed number 1 whole and 1/3 is all being represented with the color blue. And this fraction 1/3 is being represented by the color green. You would end up with a total of 1 whole and combine those for 2/3. So that's the picture cue. But look at the example mathematically. I've got 1 whole here. So I'm going to add 1 whole. There's no whole in the second fraction. I have a common denominator of thirds, and then I add the numerators. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 whole and 2/3. All right, we have another picture clue here. So we're going to look at 1 whole and 3 fifths is a mixed number. So I've got 1 whole. That's equivalent to 5 fifths. So you know you've got 5 fifths right there. Okay, so 5 fifths, but then we're going to add another 3 fifths. And so all that is highlighted in blue. Next, we're going to add 2 fifths. So that is highlighted in orange. Altogether, 1 and 3 fifths plus 2 fifths covers the span of 2 whole. Watch as I do this as an equation. I look at my whole number 1. I'm going to add it to the other fraction, which there is no whole number in the other fraction. I have a fifth as a common denominator, and then I add 3 plus 2, which is 5. Okay, now you see 1 and 5/5 is not a choice, but you know that 5/5 is equivalent. I can recompose that as a number 1 there, and so you've got 1 whole here, and you've got 1 whole here, which is equivalent to 2 whole. You'll see another example like this. We're going to start with 1 and 2/6. So on my number line, you can see from 0 to 1, there should be 6 equal parts. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts, which defines our sixths. So this one's going to start at 1 and 2/6, which happens to be right here. We're going to add an additional 4/6. Okay, so there's 1 and 2/6. Let's add 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, and 1/6 4 times. It's a total of 4/6. Will then put us up to the number 2. And I could do this as an equation. Okay, my mixed number, I have 1 whole and 2/6 plus 4/6. My only whole number is going to be 1. Keep my denominator 6. 2 plus 4 is 6. And you know that 6/6 is another whole. So this whole plus this whole I can rewrite as 2 whole. Okay. This one even took me a second to look at. What they're trying to model here is 1 and 3/4. You've got the whole number 1, which represents this whole pie in green. So imagine this fraction is in green here. And the other fraction is in red over there. Okay, so you've got 1 whole and 3/4. So you've got 1 whole green pie plus 3 additional fourths. And over here you've got 1 whole and an additional 1/4. All right, and you can see clearly with the model that is equivalent to 3 whole pies. Okay, but let's do this equation as a math sentence. 1 whole and 3/4 plus 1 whole and 1/4. Again, I'm going to start adding with my whole numbers. 1 and 1 make 2. I have a common denominator of 4. And 3 plus 1, that's these numerators, equals 4. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this because this is a whole here, and 2 whole that we already have plus the 4/4, which makes another whole, actually ends up with 3 entire whole pies. And in science today, what would happen if you didn't have a skull? A short mini lesson from Doug from Mystery Science. If you have a printer and you can print out the skull, that'd be great if you could. If you can't, no big deal. Just watch the video, and this will connect with Wednesday's science lesson on how does your brain control your body. Because we know one of the main functions of the skull is to protect our brain. So once again, make sure you hit all of these targets today, Monday, May 18th. We're going to start with Math Board Facts levels. Splash Math, you have 2 levels today, level 10, level 11, and then a short video from Mystery Science. All right? Have a great Monday, everyone.